Stopping people from taking advantage of you isn't about becoming hard, rude, or closed off. It's about becoming clear in a way that can't be negotiated away. Because the truth is, most people who overstep didn't just stumble into that position, they were allowed into it. Not always intentionally, but gradually. There's small moments where you explained too much, tolerated too long, or gave more than was being returned. And once someone learns that your boundaries are flexible, they don't question them, they use them. The first shift is learning to stop over-explaining your no. A lot of people think that being kind means giving a full explanation, softening the blow, or making sure the other person fully understands why you can't do something. But over-explaining doesn't create understanding, it creates openings. The more details you give, the more someone can pick apart your reasoning, suggest alternatives, or pressure you into changing your mind. A boundary becomes a debate instead of a decision. There is power in a simple, calm, "I'm not available for that." No long story, no apology tour, just a statement. Because when your no requires validation, it stops being a boundary and starts being a request for permission. The second shift is refusing to reward behavior that disrespects you. If someone crosses your boundaries but still gets your time, your help, your presence, or your emotional energy, they learn something very quickly. There is no real consequence. People don't just listen to what you say, they study what you allow. If they ignore your limits and nothing changes, they won't suddenly develop respect later. They'll get more comfortable. And this is where many people stay stuck, because they keep hoping that if they explain better, the other person will finally get it. But respect isn't taught through repeated conversations, it's reinforced through changed access. When someone shows you they don't value your boundaries, your response has to reflect that, or your words will never carry weight. The third shift is learning to watch patterns instead of getting caught in apologies. Someone who takes advantage rarely refuses accountability outright. They offer just enough remorse to keep the connection going. They'll say sorry, they'll acknowledge your feelings, they might even promise to do better. But then over time, the same behavior shows up again, and again, and again. Apologies can feel like progress, but patterns reveal the truth. If the behavior continues, the apology was not change, it was maintenance. It was just enough to keep you from pulling away. When you start focusing on what someone consistently does, instead of what they say in emotional moments, you stop getting pulled back into cycles that were never actually improving. The fourth shift is getting comfortable with disappointing people. This is where a lot of people struggle, because they've been conditioned to believe that being a good person means being agreeable, accommodating, and easy to deal with. So when someone reacts negatively to a boundary, when they get upset, distant, or frustrated, it feels like you've done something wrong. But sometimes, disappointment is not a sign that you've failed someone. It's a sign that you've stopped overextending yourself to meet expectations that were never fair to begin with. If someone only feels good about you when you're saying yes, that's not connection, that's convenience. And if your role in someone's life depends on you being endlessly available, then your boundaries will always feel like a threat to them. That doesn't mean your boundaries are wrong. It means they were benefiting from your lack of them. The fifth shift is stopping the habit of making special exceptions. This often sounds like, "I don't usually do this, but I'll do it this time," or "I normally have a rule about this, but I'll make an exception for you." And in that moment, it feels harmless, even generous. But what it communicates is that your boundaries are flexible under the right pressure. And once someone knows that, they don't see your boundary as firm, they see it as something to work around. People who take advantage are very observant. They notice where you bend, where you hesitate, where you make room. And they will return to that exact opening again. Consistency is what makes a boundary real. The moment it becomes situational, it becomes negotiable. The sixth shift is learning to match energy instead of overgiving. When you're the one always showing up, always helping, always initiating, always adjusting, you create an imbalance that invites people to take more than they give. Not always out of malice, but because you've set the tone. You've shown that you'll carry the weight of the relationship. But relationships are not meant to be one-sided performances. When you start paying attention, you'll notice who reciprocates and who simply receives. Matching energy doesn't mean becoming cold or petty. It means becoming aware. It means you stop pouring endlessly into people who aren't pouring back. And when you pull your energy back to a level that matches theirs, you create space for either balance or clarity. And the final shift, the one that ties all of this together, is being willing to walk away. Because some people will not respect your boundaries no matter how clearly you communicate them. Not because they don't understand, but because they don't want to. Your boundaries require them to change, and they're more comfortable with you adjusting instead. And in those situations, the only boundary that truly holds is distance. Not as punishment, not as revenge, but as self-respect. Because at some point, you have to accept a hard truth. Some people don't respect boundaries, they respect consequences. And when they realize that access to you is no longer guaranteed, that's when your value becomes clear. When you put all of this together, something shifts internally. You stop trying to convince people to treat you better, and you start requiring it. You stop negotiating your limits, and you start standing in them. And most importantly, you stop seeing boundaries as something that pushes people away, and start recognizing them as the very thing that protects your peace, your time, and your sense of self.